Hi, I'm Lindsay. I'm here for CEP810. This is the Cooking with TPACK activity. I apologize if my voice is a little hoarse. I've had bronchitis for over a week now, so I'm just now kind of getting my voice back. For this activity, first we were asked to have someone else choose 3 things from us from our kitchen, and you needed to ask them for a plate, a bowl, and a cooking utensil, but you could not specify which ones you needed. So they were just chosen at random. And for mine, my boyfriend chose for me a square plate, a square bowl, and a little whisk. And I got this actually for my teaching internship from a Secret Santa, so I've still kept on to that. Also, we had them choose out of a hat or a bowl one of 5 activities that we were going to have to perform using these utensils, and he chose for me make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So that is my task today, which is a little difficult, or one might think would be a little difficult doing with just a plate, a bowl, and a whisk. So I'm going to do my best to try and make it work. Don't really need the bowl for this, so I can set that aside. I will use the plate to put the sandwich on, and here I have peanut butter, jelly, and bread. So first I will take the bread, and initially we don't normally have bread as it is. We don't normally eat it, so I'm very lucky in this case that we actually do have bread here. Before, if I wasn't going to actually use the loaf of bread, I was just going to use our hamburger buns in order to do it. So like I said, normally we don't kind of keep bread around, but my boyfriend's the cook, I'm not, so he luckily had gotten bread this week. But going along with the whole kind of TPACK theory of having to repurpose things, specifically your tools for technology, that's kind of what TPACK focuses on. In this case, what I would have done is taken the hamburger buns and used those, kind of repurposed those themselves, and use that for my bread in order to make this sandwich. TPACK talks, as I said, a lot about repurposing technology and the tools that you use when teaching with technology in the classroom. But I also think that the other 2 areas of TPACK, the content and the pedagogy, both of those can be repurposed a bit as well, and that's where repurposing the hamburger buns to make that sandwich would have kind of come into play. That's what I would consider relate to the content that you're taking and repurposing, just like in Dr. Mishra's video when he talked about in Denmark how the students are allowed to use the internet in order to take their exams. They can use the internet for the full exam, but while taking the exam, or after going over the exam, teachers, administrators, they kind of realized, well, they can find this information way too easily, so we need to repurpose the test that is written in order to kind of equal out then the technology that we're using and allowing them to use in order to complete this exam. So instead of just having all of these who, what, when questions, they changed the exam to be more of how and why, so that the students had to think more critically and they couldn't just Google the answers and find them right away, but they actually had to search and know how to use that technology correctly in order to find those answers or to help them with their answers. So there they also kind of reformatted not only technology, in their case using the internet, but they were able to take the content that they were teaching in the classroom and repurpose it in a way so that when they got to the exam, the students got to the exam, then they would be able to answer those how or why questions more accurately while still being able to use their technology. So I just thought that was pretty interesting. It was a great idea for them to realize what was going on and to take that next step in order to still make it work for them without it being too easy on the students, because the whole point of TPACK is making sure that the content, the pedagogy, and the technology all work in unison, they all work together. So we're going to apply that theory to this task and kind of talk about repurposing. As I mentioned, repurposing the hamburger buns, which normally you don't, well, as far as I don't know of anybody who uses them to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So normally they're used for hamburgers, that's why we call them hamburger buns. So in this case, I would be repurposing that, or the content, my ingredients here, in order to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Also, being that this is a whisk and not a knife, which usually is something that you would use to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, we are going to have to repurpose this tool instead of kind of a mixing tool into something that we can actually use in order to make our sandwich. So my initial thoughts were, okay, I think I can make this work, but we'll see how it goes, how much I'm able to repurpose it for. So I have peanut butter, 2 pieces of bread here, and we're going to kind of use the whisk as a spoon in this case with the peanut butter and the jelly. So I'm actually going to take the jelly first, and we will use this, as I said, kind of like a spoon. It's not going to work exactly like a spoon. Obviously, this doesn't have, a solid surface like a spoon would have. So, and we're going to kind of look at it as a knife/spoon because that's all I have to go on. And I'm going to try and scrape some of this jelly out, which, let me move this peanut butter here so you can see a little better, is going to be a little difficult with this jelly. It's kind of solid but not fully solid. Also, as I'm doing this, you can see the jelly kind of gets caught in the whisk because, again, it doesn't have that flat surface. So not only am I scooping it out, so normally maybe you would use a spoon for this, but I'm also having to spread it around, which, again, normally a butter knife or something of the sort would be a little bit better. This is a little hard to spread around. The jelly does get caught in the whisk. Doesn't spread very smoothly. But so far, so good. At least we have jelly on our bread. 1/2 of the sandwich. And I'll keep trying to scoop a little bit out here. This might not be quite as pretty either as if you were to use a knife, but we make do. So now that I have some jelly on here, I will try and scoop out peanut butter the same way. Again, in this case, something like a spoon or a knife to kind of get the peanut butter out would be a lot more useful, but we're going to use the whisk as both our spoon and our butter knife. And you can see there that the peanut butter actually gets stuck in the whisk, which is going to make this a little bit more difficult as far as spreading goes. If we had more of a flat surface, or at least a solid surface, like the bottom of the spoon is round and it's solid, it doesn't have the holes to allow things to kind of fall through or get stuck in, it would make this a lot easier. But even though this is more of a challenge, the important thing, I think, is to realize that it's still possible to do. Whisk wouldn't be my first choice, but obviously if that's all I have here, I'm still able to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Sometimes you don't always have the tools that you would like to have as a teacher. For example, one of my classrooms, when I taught both middle and high school Spanish, only had 4 computers, but we required the students to complete an hour of language lab on the computers a week. So I think our biggest class in that school was around 26 students. And again, we only had 4 computers, so we had to make that work. That's all you have. You can't just magically make more computers reappear. So we kind of, what I came up with was a taking the initiative time, which then allowed students to rotate through certain stations, and they chose, you know, what they were going to do with that time. And I think it was every day they had about 20 to 30 minutes of taking the initiative. So along with the language lab, they had to do their speaking activities in Spanish. Same with their writing in their About Me books, for their portfolios for the year, things like that. So, you know, you just adapt. As a teacher, we all know that's what you have to do. You adapt to certain situations and you make it work the best that you can. So, again, that's what I'm trying to do here with this whisk, but it is getting caught. It's difficult. It's kind of tearing the bread as well. Obviously, this isn't a smooth surface, so it's not going to work as well as the knife would. And it's without using your fingers, there's really no way to get this peanut butter out that's caught. So in that case, you're just going to have to keep kind of grabbing more and doing the best that we can here. But as I said, it's not impossible to do. If I were to show you this, again, although it's not pretty, we do have peanut butter and jelly on our sandwich, or on our bread, to make a sandwich. So it is possible to do. We were able to repurpose the whisk into kind of a spoon/knife, if you will, in order to be able to scoop it out and get it on the bread. The only thing that is going to be difficult with this, and really there's no good way to do it, so if you like your sandwiches cut, that's going to be an issue using the whisk. So there are certain limitations that you realize with repurposing tools, whether, you know, it be the technology not allowing you to record sound, or maybe you can only record sound and not the actual visuals, certain things like that. You start to realize what your restrictions are, and you just make them work for whatever you may be doing. So in this case, again, this isn't really going to cut. It's not cutting through the bread. If I were to press hard enough, I probably could here in it, but this isn't a straight surface here, or a flat surface, so, and it's got these metal ridges that are going to actually cut the bread into more than one piece if I were to do that. So in this case, I'm not going to cut it. It's going to make it really messy, messier than it already is. As you can see, if I were trying to cut it, it would make these lines in the bread. Therefore, it's not the best knife, and I'm figuring out what my restrictions are using this whisk for a knife, or in place of a knife. Even a spoon has that one surface, even though it's not completely flat. It would allow you to cut a little better than this whisk would, given that it has multiple kind of sides and surfaces to it. Therefore, you know, the same applies. You just realize what you can kind of push as far as the boundaries with technology, and same with cooking. Given the resources that you have, you see what all you can do and how far you can actually push that limit. So this, I think, is the limit for this whisk. But now I know in the future, if I have to, a whisk can still put the peanut butter and jelly on the bread to make your sandwich. So it's good to know those options, whether you decide to use them in the future or not, by actually trying them out. Just as it's suggested in TPACK, not being afraid to try new tools, then you realize what really you can use and what is easier for you, what's harder. You know, you can share that with other people too, and they can also help you with providing feedback and say, well, actually, you know what, I was able to use this whisk in order to do this with the peanut butter and jelly, or, you know, whatever it may be. So they could give you different kind of tools or ways to repurpose that tool that you have, that utensil, in order to make your sandwich better. Or with technology, if you put it out there for others to see, they can give you feedback on it, so that they can say, well, actually, this is how I used that technological tool in order to do my lesson, and these are the benefits from it. So then you can learn from that feedback, apply it to your own classroom of students, and again, just repurpose it. You don't have to repurpose it once. It can be repurposed as many times as you need it to be to adapt to whatever lesson that you're doing. Same with utensils. Whisks are not only meant for mixing, but as we saw, we can spread peanut butter, jelly, put that on a bread, pieces of bread. We could also make it do other things. You know, if we needed to cook with it and that's all you have in your kitchen, for some reason everything else is dirty, then you realize, okay, well, you know what, I'm going to make this work the best I can. Maybe you're making pasta. Normally you have some sort of spoon that's almost like a strainer. I think we have one here that we use for pasta, something like this. Well, maybe it's dirty. So, you know what? I can use this to make sure that the pasta is pushed down in a pot like this. I can push the pasta down, make sure it's all getting in the water so that it boils, and then I can also kind of mix it and make sure that the pasta is not sticking to the bottom. And then when I'm kind of pouring the pasta out, I can also use it to help guide the pasta out. So it's not just meant for one thing only. It's proof today, you know, a whisk can help you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but it can also do a lot of other things. It's just making sure that you don't always get stuck in the same mindset when you're teaching, just as when you're cooking, and that you're not afraid to go outside of your comfort zone and try new things. It's really easy once you find something that works to get in the habit of using it over and over and over again. But again, exploring more options, you see what you can actually use, and it may be more fun. I don't know. This was interesting. It's not something I normally would use to make a sandwich, but made it a little more fun, actually. So even though I can't cut the sandwich, it's not your everyday experience. And I think that's really good for students, keeps them engaged, especially if you have them more than 1 year, which as a Spanish teacher, a lot of times we'll have the same students as foreign language teachers, you know, through levels 1, 2, 3. So it's good that you don't always use the same techniques because the students may get bored. They may just, you know, zone out then. So what are you going to do? You got to mix it up. You got to make it interesting. So again, we have our peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Not the prettiest, but it works. So, all right, thanks guys.